When I first got to know Secretary Hayes, he was wallowing around in the waters of the Colorado. And as you know, in the Southland and in the West, we particularly are concerned about water issues and problems. Now, I can't say that Secretary Hayes has done all that I might want to see him do or accomplish relative to our problems along the Delta, but I'll leave that to others to discuss perhaps today, because I want to raise a parallel challenge that's a very, very real challenge. One of the great successes we've had over the years, in my judgment, in the arena of flood control and water conservation has to do with the Santa Ana River project. Controlling the flooding impact along the Santa Ana River that affects many a community, and eventually it affects them, flows a lot of water into the ocean. The very peak of that project is an operation known as the Seven Oaks Dam. Seven Oaks Dam initially was a major flood control effort that would be the beginning point of controlling flooding and damage and otherwise along the river line. We altered that Seven Oaks Dam project to the tune of several hundreds of millions of dollars to also have the project, Seven Oaks Dam, be one of conservation, providing significant conservation. And indeed, as a result of our recent flooding out there, there's almost a Lake Gregory behind the Seven Oaks Dam, kind of sitting there with much silt, our people would suggest. It is my concern that as we've dealt with the problems along the Delta, that the Santa Ana sucker could have similar impacts in the Santa River Basin. A species about to be declared in a fashion that could have huge economic impacts within all of Southern California. We were talking about a study earlier that you were very concerned about making sure was carefully evaluated because it might be full of some holes. Some were suggesting even that it might not tell you what you want to hear. Well, the Santa Ana sucker study that was done, to say the least, is far from a professional piece of work. And I'd hope you would look at that study with the same kind of careful analysis as you suggest we're doing with the other. The sucker along the Santa Ana River could literally have dramatic impact upon development, opportunity for living, the entire environment along the Santa Ana. And indeed, it is not our business in the interior or in the federal government at a regional level or a local level to use, if you will, to use endangered species or potentially endangered species as essentially a regional planning mechanism. And it's the concern of some that we're about to do that with a Santa Ana sucker and thereby cut off not just the flood control flows or the impact of flood controls along the Santa Ana, but cut off dramatically the potential for conservation, providing huge new water supply for a very important basin that could be very directly linked in the future to whether we have rationing or do not have rationing in Southern California. I don't think this president or this secretary or otherwise want to be anywhere closely tied to the eventuality of water rationing in the Southland. Indeed, it could destroy federal policy directions in a manner that perhaps would undermine even your wildest dreams relative to the interior. So with that, I'd be interested in comments about the Santa Ana sucker or otherwise.
I will ask David to comment if he knows anything at all on the Santa Ana River issues, because I frankly I spent a lot of time working on these water issues in California, and as many of you on this committee know, including Congressman Calvert, so much of that has been spent up in the San Francisco Bay Delta and in the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers, where we have done a lot in the last 2 years under the leadership of Deputy Secretary David Hayes and Mike Connor from the Bureau of Reclamation. And I think without knowing anything at all, frankly, about the Santa Ana, because this is the first time that someone raises it with me, Congressman, what I would say is it's important for us to be proactive and to get ahead of these issues so that we avoid the kind of train wrecks that we have seen in the San Francisco Bay Delta. We worked very closely with Governor Schwarzenegger and with the water users to try to move forward with a comprehensive plan on the San Francisco Bay Delta. We're doing that now with the Governor Brown and his people, and are hopeful that we'll be able to do something there that ultimately will deal with the issues for the long term. But getting ahead of these issues is important. And let me just have David, because he works so much on these issues, and he may know something more on the Santa Ana than I do.
You want to talk about the suckers with us, honey?
First, I want to thank you for all your compliments sending my way. It's very energizing, and I really enjoyed working with you on the 4.4 plan and dealing with those big issues on the Colorado, and have continued to enjoy working with you on the ongoing issues. I am not that familiar with the Santa Ana sucker issue, but you can be sure after this hearing we will be making some calls as soon as we get back.
I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, if we could kind of fill our record with some of those issues for it, could become one of the major items over time here. Thank you.
Ms. McCollum?